this Q&A as well, just so everybody knows. But hey, just want to say thank you for everybody joining. This is Storage Authority's first webinar Q&A. We're going to be doing this on the first Thursday of every month. So, feel free to jump in. We're going to kind of grassroots it, kind of like a virtual roundtable where we can just collaborate and go back and forth. But quick introductions on our team. We got Kevin Harless. He's our development director. He's been in self-storage for 17 plus years, several conversions and ground ups. Mark Gooden, he's a Storage Authority's president, civil engineer by trade, building, designing, consulting in our space for 30 plus years. I joined our industry back in '09 with Storage Authority since 2017. So we help busy professionals develop self-storage so they can create that huge retirement nest egg. So 100 years of experience on our side. So, we're here to answer everybody else's questions and kind of collaborate. We want to have fun doing this. No questions off the table. You might have something site specific or facility specific. We want to talk about where we're at in industry, where we're going. So, feel free to either just jump right on in. You can raise your hand and I'll call on you, throw a question in the chat. Well, we want this to be engaging and collaborative. So, feel free to jump in and ask a question. And if there's no initial questions, I'll get us rolling. All right. So, nothing out of the gates, but I'll talk about the elephant in the room, and I'm going to throw this to you, Mark. What's going on with the interest rates? How's this working out still?
Well, the interest rates are one of those things that make self-storage such a large opportunity for us. If you just do a little bit of math, let's say you borrow $8 million, a 1% drop in the interest rate is $80,000, and that's just the interest only payment. So if interest rates go down 2%, you're going to make an extra $160,000 a year on that one factor. And we all know rates are going to head down. It's been a slow and steady pace, but it takes time to design, develop, build. And the biggest part of your interest rate is after construction when you go to a permanent loan. I built my first two self-storages at 8.5% interest. Now, and so now they're both at 4% for the next 3 years because I signed a 7-year contract with the bank. Imagine that. I'm making, I said 160, so I'm making $320,000 more per facility than when I got in at 8.5%. So, it's just one of those things that go up and down. When it's up, it's an opportunity because nobody else is building. It's an opportunity to buy at cheaper land. So I think it's a great time because now, we see the markets going down. But as an entrepreneur, it's these things that you have to work with. A lot of people didn't build self-storage when rates were at 4%. And the same people that are saying they're not going to build now probably won't build when it gets to 4 or 5%. You just got to bite the bullet. It's going in our direction. If we can make it, we've got 2 or 3 facilities that are bidding right at this point, and they're working. They're going to work that much better as time goes on. You hear it in the home builder. Buy the house you love. Well, before it goes too high when the rates come down, you can always refinance.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the old saying. You're buying the house or you're building the facility. You're not marrying the rate. So that fluctuates, and nobody saw these 11 increases in 18 months. So it definitely has changed our climate. But the ones that forge ahead, and we all got the news from Jerome Powell yesterday that the forecast is they're going to start incrementally bringing the rates down. So I think we can start to pencil projects a little bit better here in the near future.
Yeah, and Garrett, if I could add one more thing, as rates come down, especially if they get, really come down 1 or 2%, you're going to see the home building market skyrocket for a year. And that's going to fill our facilities up to capacity and allow the rents to be increased as well. So it's good because we can borrow money at less, but it's going to increase our occupancy, which increases our rent rates and rent roll.
How about Kevin? Anything to add there? Piggybacking Mark?
No, I think Mark's 100% right. And where interest rates are now, and we're looking at starting to probably get our first cut here in the next few months. What I've seen over the history of interest rates is once they start cutting, they go pretty fast. So if you're looking to get into self-storage, now's a good time to get in, start looking for land, start your development packages, because by the time you're ready to finance, these interest rates could be at a very doable percentage and really help out pencil your project. Just like Mark was saying, it'd make you a lot more income on the bottom line.
That's it. How about it? And nothing to obviously we don't want to get into politics, but back to you, Mark. Does it you feel like it's going to matter, who takes office here in November? You think that's going to make a difference either way?
I can't even watch TV anymore. You just don't know what any of these politicians are going to do. I've been in self-storage since 1985 when I designed my first one. So I've seen 4 recessions and tons of presidents. Not a one of them made a really big hill of beans. So there's no game to be played. Now's a great time. It's going to be a great time no matter who's elected. I don't see any input. And it's just crazy out there with the politics today. So I think I'll just make some more money and not worry about what they're going to do.
How about Kevin? I'll throw you this one. How about for land? When we're talking about finding land for self-storage, is there a sweet spot, or what's the typical range of acres we're looking for?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, most of the time it depends on whether you want to build single or multi-story. Of course, if you're going to build multi-story, you can use a smaller piece of land, but then your build cost goes up, Garrett. So at the end of the day, if you really want to maximize your income, it's nice to get somewhere between 5 to 7 acres of land. So that way you can build a single story facility, save a lot on your build cost, and then make you a little bit of income at the same time. I think the difficult part in finding land right now is finding a place where you can get a good rate for what you're going to do at your storage facility, a rate per square foot per rental rate, and still buy that land. I think the sweet spot right now is anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million to buy a piece of land. And if you can do that, you can build and get into an area and still charge a rate that's going to get you a good net operating income on that facility.
Anything to add there, Mark?
Well, I just want to put this through some people's minds that are thinking about building multi-story. Multi-story, let's just say it costs $20 more a square foot to build. And let's say you're building an 80,000 square foot. A lot of the multi-stories are a lot bigger than that. So people find a multi-story and they want to, purchase it at a higher price for the land. And then they forget about that $20 a square foot construction cost. But that's 20,000 times an 80,000 gross square foot building is 1.6 million extra in construction costs. So, when you're out there looking and you think you found something that works for multi-story, the numbers work. I'll tell you what, they're going to be unbelievable for single story. And you've got a 1.6 million extra to buy that land. So it's really difficult to do multi-story unless you have your the money you're putting down 50, 60, 75% nowadays to make the numbers work. So just remember, do that cost and you'll find all of a sudden, hey, I'm putting an extra $1.5 million because I'm building multi-story just in the construction cost. If you put some of that towards the land, it all of a sudden gets easier and easier when you realize that to find 5, 6, 7 acres.
Yeah, no, agreed there. And just to piggyback that as well, the flexibility of if you're staying single story, maybe you design 80,000 square feet, you put, 50,000 square feet online, you lease that up 60%, you start phase 2. So, not only does it cost less to build, it gives you that flexibility, the option. Do I want to build it all at once? Do I want to phase into it? Still looking for the metrics of good drive-by traffic. The math has to check out, good population in that 3-mile radius. Pivoting from land. How about the metric of, this is out in the industry now too, is are we getting away from the metric of supply being square foot per capita? How do you guys feel about that? And I'll throw that to you first, Kevin.
I think the idea now is to get into an area and look at rate potential, look at what the area is doing rate wise, look at what the availability of occupancy is in an area. It used to be where you would go into an area and someone would say, oh, this area has a 10 per capita or 12 per capita. We don't want to go in there and build because there's too much storage. But what we've found is that, yeah, the area might be a high per capita, but is there any rooms available at any of those facilities? Is there still demand? And a really good indicator of that is if you can go out and visit those facilities, ask, what's your occupancy percent? How many rooms do you have available here? How quickly are you filling up rooms when they empty? What's your rates like? Are they going down over the last year or so, or are they going up? And can really tell you about the demand more than the per capita. And per capita is not a bad number to look at. It's the tip of the iceberg. And so there's so much more that you can look at in a self-storage development on whether you can go in or not go into areas. And what we're seeing is now that we're taking a lot closer look at other factors, there's a lot of areas where you could build self-storage that were never being considered before because the per capita number in that particular area.
Yeah, agreed. Anything, Mark, on that topic?
I think I'm just a little stronger than Kevin. I think we should just throw it in the trash. It's meaning, it's meaningless. Throw it in the trash. It's not going to help you make any decisions in the end. You're always going to have to do what Kevin said, see what the other guys are charging and see how full they are. Because your goal is to charge premium prices and rent them fast. Nobody cares what the square foot per person is. I've got facilities that have 15 square feet per person, and I'm charging double what the other guys are doing because I know what the other competition looks like. They're unmanned facilities, they're small facilities, they're ugly facilities. So square feet per capita doesn't take into consideration that 60-70% of our self-storages in the United States were built 20 years ago, and they're just not modern. So we think when we see square foot per person, we think it's all competition, when you know what? Usually less than half of it is really competition. Half, and so you just have to provide a service that people are looking for, and because I think you can cut that square foot per person in half. People used to say 8 is equilibrium. Well, I disagree with that. When you cut out that 8 is actually 4 when you cut out the bad competition. So, I can definitely build when there's 16, I can build because I can take enough out of that area. Or maybe not. Maybe everyone around you is brand new and perfect. You got to do the field work, and people are making too many mistakes by using square feet per person,
Yeah.
And wasting time.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, we like to look at a particular business model here called Lifetime Fitness. Lifetime Fitness will go into an area where there are 20 other gyms within a 3 to 5 mile area and charge double for membership cost. And why do they do that? Well, they're giving better amenities, giving better quality service, giving a better system. People will pay for that. And we can do the same thing in self-storage. And I think that's also another part of the per capita number, Garrett, that comes into, Mark mentioned it. What is competition in your area? Well, if you're going in and building a Class A facility, the guy down the road who's got, the sign falling off and barbed wire and no cameras and no website, I don't see him as competition or her as competition to you. And so you can go in there and dominate that area, even though the per capita may show that there's a lot of rooms in the area. Well, you can go in, give them what they want. Like every time I go to a Lifetime Fitness, the parking lot is completely full and they charge double, even triple sometimes what a normal gym does. And self-storage is exactly the same way. If you give a customer the product they want and do an excellent job of maintaining and putting that customer service into the product, then certainly you'll get the customers.
Yeah, nice analogy there, Kevin. Just for me chiming in too, it is you see an area where there's so many mom and pops, and like Mark mentioned, maybe they built in the 80s or 90s, and they're just stoked that they're 99% full or 100% full. No revenue management. They haven't gave a rate increase in 7 years. It's an old, tired looking facility, but yet they're gobbling up the supply. So if we look at that metric, we're going to come in, build a beautiful facility, beautiful landscape, really cater to the customer and the community. And it's just not apples to apples there. So, that does make a huge difference on, you can't really evaluate just on square foot per capita anymore.
Right. Well, and Garrett, a lot of times now, when you do get out there and evaluate that competition, you might actually find a deal to buy some self-storage, because if I can buy that guy who's got the barbed wire and the facility's falling apart a little bit and he hadn't had any rate increases in the last 5 years and doesn't have a website, I might be able to buy that facility, especially right now, for a discounted rate because there's not a lot of buyers out there. Then I can go into the facility, upgrade it, upgrade the square foot, get the NOI up at that, and then I can have a home run of a storage facility there. So it's another reason to get out and check out the competition in the area. It might lend you to an opportunity to be able to buy a self-storage facility.
Yeah, that's a good transition there, Kevin. It is a good time, probably maybe one of the best times to, actually pick up a current facility. Just the way, some of these facilities, they're on a term rate, and it just might be time they want to get out of the industry. So if you can get in there and get a great price for the facility, the timing could be right for that. Pick up the rates, give it a little, cosmetic look to it, to where, it turns into a first class facility. The timing could be right. Mark, I think you're seeing that a little bit too, that we had, some dialogue on, picking up facilities or owners looking to maybe develop. It might make sense to actually buy a facility at this point.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the REITs are doing, first off, because what used to be a 4 cap rate now is selling for a 5 or 6 cap rate. And if you start getting facilities under 50,000, especially in the 30,000, 40,000 or less square footage, you can buy them right now at less than replacement cost. So, if your goal is a 40,000 or 50,000 square foot facility without a phase 2, you might be better off buying a facility at less than replacement cost. This is the first time in my life where I've seen that you can buy some nice facilities at less than replacement cost. And it's not going to last forever. The rates go down 2% and that will be gone again. These little facilities, once again, will be selling at 4 and 5 cap rates, which is kind of crazy, but that's the way it is. So there's a lot of opportunity to buy existing self-storages right now.
Yeah, and just a quick note, I see a lot of people on mute, so feel free to, throw something in the chat if you have a question, or you raise your hand and pop on in or unmute. Again, this is just kind of look at this as a virtual roundtable, that we're just having a discussion, and any feedback that you guys are seeing in your market, welcome to share with us as well. Going back to the land, I'll throw this to you, Kevin. How about, is there any, tips searching out there, any technology that really could help us speed things along?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. We can all go sign up for all the websites and, that are selling land on market right now. And they'll certainly email you tons of storage facilities that go on market and tons of pieces of land. But we all know those are the ones everyone's competing over. One of the things I like to do is, when I determine what area I want to go into self-storage, I go look at opportunities on particular websites like Regrid. And you can go in and look for particular, and you can even put in filters to look for particular land size and land areas. And it gives you all the information that you need about that facility to make a decision on whether it's something you'd want to pursue or investigate as a specific self-storage opportunity. And then it even gives you the contact information for the owner. So what I do when I do that is, if I find a piece that I like, well, I start sending that owner a postcard immediately. I'll go down to the local post office, buy some, I'm in Texas, so I'll buy some blue bonnet postcards and just send them out. And the reason I do that, I put a handwritten note on it, so that way when the owner gets it, they look at it and they go, oh, well, this is a serious person. This isn't just somebody out there sending out thousands of these things to everybody. And then we consistently send emails and letters and contacts and postcards to these people, trying to get in contact with them, because we know that most of the time you're going to find land to build self-storage, Garrett. You're going to find it off market, not on market on these websites.
Yeah, no, that's Great point there, Kevin. We had a quick question from Ryan. How about thoughts about the lot being half open for RV and boat storage and half indoor? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, it just depends on the number, the size of the property. You know, RV is not set up for small properties. If you want to build an entire RV facility, usually they start at 15 acres. And you need 5, 6 acres for self-storage. Now, if you're in somewhere in between those, or even higher than 15 acres, then it's great for a good combination of self-storage and RV storage. I'm trying to think now. I would say about 50% of our self-storages that we've worked on, it might be 40%, but they have RV storage along with it. They're a good match. The thing about RV storage, there's just more zones and more towns that do not permit it outside. So you just have to check the zoning right off the bat so you know. You just got to remember it takes a lot more land for RV storage. And if you're gonna, put canopies over it, it's not free. It's almost the same price as self-storage. But if you're just gonna put in 15 or 20, you can start with a gravel surface. Later on, you could pave it. Later on, you could add the canopy. So those are the options, but they're a good match. And you're finding people that just do self-storage and just do RV storage. Well, if you're having troubles finding either one, think about doing them both together. Sometimes that is on the edge of town where you can't fill up 80,000 square feet of self-storage. But you can get 100 RVs and you can get 40,000 square feet of self-storage, and it's a perfect opportunity in some of those lower population areas because people will drive much further for RV parking.
Yeah, end of the day, you really just want to maximize the revenue of that site. So if it's a good blend, RV and unit, unit's always going to be your best return. But if you have that extra acreage, there's demand. You definitely can open the door for RV. We got a question in from Blake. He said, "What are you seeing with construction costs across the nation? Any stabilization or still increasing across the board?" Throw that to you, Kevin.
Well, actually, we've seen steel prices go down in the last year. Construction costs, because there's not as many new builds going up, have started to trickle down. It really depends on the market that you're in. I think we've penciled some projects right around $75 to $80 a foot, and then in some parts of the country, we've had projects coming in at $90 to $95 a foot for single-story storage. So at the end of the day, I think construction costs are stabilizing or trickling down a little bit, but it just depends on where you're at in the country of what your rate's going to get. And of course, when you go out there and get bids, you're going to get bids anywhere from 15 to 20 to $30 a square foot difference, and you just really need to get in and look at those contractors and make sure that they're good with self-storage. I would highly recommend when you're working with a contractor, they've done self-storage and they know what they're looking at. It can certainly save you money on that bid price.
Mark, you have a ton of experience in development and construction. What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely down. Steel's down 40% this year, which is down from the peak before. The one we're going to have to follow next is concrete. As soon as we see the prices of concrete come down, we're going to see another decrease in price. I do think, a lot of the projects that were just built recently, they were in the pipeline before the interest rates got this high. And so now there is fewer self-storages being built right now compared to a year ago. And that means we're seeing more people bid on our projects. And we're just over the last 6 months, construction costs have gone down $10 a square foot. And I see that going down at least for the next 6 months, maybe a year. But then it's going to, it will stabilize. But by the time that stabilizes, other things are going to cost you more, like the land will go up as soon as the rates go down. So it's down to a good point. It's not at that ridiculously high price it was, over the last, 6 months to a year ago. So, we're like Kevin said, we're bidding away and we're getting prices that make sense. But like he says, you got to find a good contractor and often get multiple bids if you don't know your contractors well.
Yeah, I think at the peak of construction, it really got to a point, talking to some contractors where they didn't even want the job. They were so darn busy, they would throw out a ridiculous price, and whoever was the developer, or I mean the owner, still wanted to develop. So that's definitely cooled off now. So we're getting some realistic construction rates. So that's all good news. We got a state specific question here from Andre. What are your thoughts on the Las Vegas, Nevada market? Lots of residential development. How would you approach self-storage development in Las Vegas with storage authority?
Well, in general, Las Vegas is a good market. And there's actually more storage per square foot in Las Vegas than other states, but there's a lot more because, and it might be Las Vegas has a larger commercial use of self-storage. I've seen it where they put three self-storages on three corners and they can still have room for that fourth one. So it's a higher use of self-storage in Nevada. It all comes down to self-storage is a 3 mile radius. So when we say Las Vegas or Reno or these areas, you still have to do your due diligence like any state. There are some states that I wouldn't recommend, but Las Vegas is one that is a good state to look in. So it's just that finding that 3 mile radius, but it works well in Las Vegas. The rates are similar to the rest of the United States. Zoning is not a super difficult problem like it is in two or three other states. So it's definitely a good place to look. And our guidance is always look close to home. It's that much easier to make a profit because you can stay on top of things. So if I lived in Las Vegas or Nevada, that's exactly where I would look for land.
Yeah, and one thing we have here at Storage Authority that we help you with is there are tons of available information websites out there like Store Track and Radius Plus where we can go into an area and really hone down. The question is Las Vegas a good area? Well, almost everywhere is a good area, just depending on what kind of pocket that you go into and what your land price is, what you can get rent per square foot, and your build price. So we have tools like Radius Plus and Store Track where you can actually zoom into that 3 mile radius, like Mark was talking about, and you can see what square footage of storage is in the area. I know we talked about per capita, but what is actually there? What's going to be your competitors? How many areas are there? Is there anything in new development? What are they getting for the rate there on the web and in the store? So all of those things are going to make into a factor. And one of the things we do here at Storage Authority is we actually have a few calculators that you can throw those numbers into to kind of give you an estimate of whether that project might pencil in that area with that particular piece of land or that rate in that area. Or if you want to go into an area and be 15 to 20% higher, you can pencil that as well. And so to answer the question, is Las Vegas a good area? Well, let's dive in and look at it, and we can get that data. And certainly the data will tell you whether it's a good area or not, whether it's Las Vegas or anywhere in the country.
Yeah, no, good answer there, Kevin. And just to kind of piggyback your store track in Radius, and there's Yardi and whatnot out there as well. Great software tools. We use them. The feasibility experts use them. We train our owners how to use them. But something that used to take us 2 days to do a mini feasibility study, we can get a lot of information fairly quickly. But so much has to be validated. Kind of like what Kevin just said. You can't go off of the web rates that are getting scraped. You can't go off of what you think's in the pipeline. You'll see somebody pull a permit, never gets developed. So, again, it speeds up, makes it a lot more efficient getting this information quickly, but all has to be validated 3 times over before you make a decision. Another question came in from Ryan here. He said, in your opinion, based on land usage, which one has a higher return? I'll throw that to you, Mark.
You're talking about RV or self-storage?
I believe that, a little general. I think, Ryan was the first one to ask the RV versus self-storage. So I think that's what he's referring to.
Well, I have a tendency to say self-storage. If I had a property that I could fill up with self-storage, I would fill up the entire property and not do any RV storage. On the other hand, people out there now are also doing 100% RV storage. because it's there's not as much of it. So it's easier to find 15 acres than it is to find 5 acres, because that 15 acres can be somewhere on a highway that's in between two towns where the land is cheap because there's nothing else there, but it's on a highway. So when people want to store their RV, they can get to it in 20 or 30 minutes, a half hour. So in general, I'm going to say self-storage is more profitable. But it's an overall game you have to look at, and it might vary depending on where you live, which one you might build. When we go out there, we look for both. We just start looking for land. We don't pigeon ourselves into converting a Walmart to doing a self-storage to buying to doing RV. We do all the review and research at the same time. They're so tied together. You're going to just naturally do the research for all of them at once. And then usually you either find an area that's better for one, or you find the piece that works for one. So it's not necessarily one's better than the other. Although I do see a greater need for RV parking, because I just read something, was like 85% of our neighborhoods now have an association, especially everything being built has a homeowners association. And if you live in a homeowners association, you can't park your RV in your driveway. So you now you got to find a place to park it, and there's just not enough places. The rent per square foot is less for an RV space, but if you get 15 acres at the right price, it makes sense. So I'm for them all, but in general, I think per square foot self-storage rents for more. That brings you back to the multi-story, single story. Which one makes you the most money? Well, you know what? Single story makes you the most money per square foot. But when you go multiple stories, you'll see these guys building 150,000, 200. So those facilities will make more money per project, because instead of building 80,000 square feet, they built 180,000 square feet because they had that kind of money. And the same goes with RV. You can build a pretty large RV park because there's not enough competition out there. If you can find the land. Even truck parking is kind of like RV parking. They got truck parking storages in a sense, going up now. So there's a lot of alternatives out there, but
Yeah, so Ryan asked a follow-up question. I'll throw this to you, Kevin.
Okay.
You said the sweet spot is 5 to 7 acres, with the land being around 1 million to 1.5. So what's the average construction cost?
Average construction cost is going to vary. Like right now, I said that we were getting projects in from $75 to $80 a foot bid, and in other parts of the country, we're getting things from $80 to $90 a foot bid. I would say you're probably looking at around $80 to $85 a foot right now if you go out and get a lot of bids. There are a lot of hungry construction guys out there right now. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with one yesterday who threw out $100 a foot bid on a multi-story construction facility. Now, I'd like to see a little bit more detail on that, but certainly I think you can go out there and relatively go out and work with most of these guys, and you're going to be able to get somewhere between 80 to 90 a foot right now, maybe better.
yeah, when Kevin says that and you compare that to what a contractor might say at first blush, that's all in. But contractors don't include signage. If you didn't really make it clear, they don't include the access control systems. They don't include the music. They don't include the cameras even in their proposals, unless you give them a pre-bid list to include these and many other things. So you just got to make sure you're talking apples to apples. But the real big thing I just want to point out for everybody to remember, we might get a bid at $80 a square foot. And again, that's all in. Contractor will say 70 until he sees the plan and the bid requirements. But if you go to build 40,000 square feet, that 80,000 bid will now be 110. And the reason being is you're doing the road widening as part of phase one. You're doing your signage as phase one. You're doing your detention pond as phase one. You're doing your office as phase one. It includes all your engineering and architectural design in phase one. And when you start paying $110 a square foot, and you only have 40,000 square feet, the numbers don't pencil. So most projects you're seeing built now are, 50,000 square feet and above as the minimum phase for phase one. Our model is 80,000 gross square feet for a net rentable of 64,000 net rentable. That works well for a lot of people, but there is no standard on size. There is no standard on layout and self-storage. It's all area related. It's related to the land, but it's tough. You start building anything small, it's cheaper to go out and buy it.
Well, and just to add a few more factors into there, when you get into it, different parts of the country are going to have different soil issues. That can drive up the price or make the price go down. Some different parts of the country are going to have different city codes. When you're building multi-story, some may want to, you may want 2 or 3 evacuation staircases in the particular facility. Some may want higher end suppression systems for fire suppression. Some may want fire doors. It really just depends on where you're at in the country, where that bid could change anywhere from $10 to $20 a foot.
Yeah, Kevin, I think we were talking just the other day, and you were talking about a vertical and adding an elevator shaft and add $1 million to a project, which is $13 a square foot. So,
Yeah.
Things
Well,
like that can.
You say that $1 million, and a lot of people will look at you and they'll go Google and find out that you can buy an elevator for 300,000. Well, it's not just the cost of the elevator; it's the cost of the landing platforms, the additional materials. How much net rentable square footage? Because you got to remember, as you go up in elevation, you're going to lose net rentable square footage. Different types of issues on suppression systems, different types of what they call fire doors on extra floors. Evacuation. So it's not just the elevator that adds to that, square foot or dollar per square foot. It's all the things that go along with a multi-story facility.
Another question from Steven. I'll let you answer this, Mark. He says, what's the cost to hire a storage authority to perform some of the due diligence to work out an outline?
We do not charge for the development phase of the project. It's free. It literally is free. We have a franchise fee to get started, like every other franchise. It's similar to a hotel's. But in a hotel world, you have to pay the hotel to help you with the design, do all these things. But we knew it was so important from day one. Right now, we put it in a package where it's part of the overall package. So we don't charge for that specifically like other franchises do, because without it, we'd be afraid people would lose too much money, make too many hit too many minefields. And that's a good question next is, some of these minefields. But we do have a franchise fee, which helps through the development, but it's also for all the training, for all the platform and systems that we put together. And all of that is on our website, storageauthorityfranchise.com, the exact costs that anybody can check out, or give Garrett a call and he'll go over that with them.
Just to piggyback real quick, Garrett, on something that Mark said there, if you do have an existing piece of land or you do have an existing retail or warehouse space, call us up at Storage Authority and we can do an initial consultation to show you what that thing would pencil out to for a self-storage project. So if it's something you've already have and you're looking to look into it to see if it might be a opportunity for you to develop self-storage, certainly give us a call and we'd be more than happy to do a free consultation for you.
So a couple questions came in kind of asking about financing. He said, can you discuss, this is from Sebastian, can you discuss a bit of the financing options, SBA, private lending, et cetera?
Yeah, there's a lot of choices out there. And let's go over SBA. A lot of people use the SBA, the small business group there from the federal government. The reason a lot of people use that is because now you can actually borrow for self-storage with 15% down. So that's a lot less than a traditional bank, which is 30% normally. During these tough banking times, that can get up to 50% down with a lot of these banks underwater. So SBA is 15% down. Now, of course, with SBA, you have a 3 to 4% fee for that guarantee that they give the banker. So that plus the rate can be 1% higher. So it's a trade-off, but it's a temporary trade-off because most people keep their SBA loans for approximately 3 years or less and refinance. But it's a good way to get into the business. Now there are other alternatives. There's a lot of hard money lenders out there that will lend you money. You can get an SBA loan, let's say at 7.75. Well, you can also go out there and get a loan with at 11%, 10, 11% from hard money. But if you do the math and there's not a big deposit and there's not a big refinance component, you'll find out even 11% is cheaper than 7.75% for 2 years. And then there's other traditional banking. Sometimes what are these banks called, Garrett? That are owned by the people that have their deposits. It's just skipping my mind the name of it right now, but everybody knows it. Credit union. There you go.
Yeah.
Credit unions sometimes can loan you money at 20% down. So that might be the next best for the lowest deposit. So it depends on your needs. Other people put 2 or 3 people together to partner and get a bigger deposit. The larger your deposit, the more money you're going to make, because right now, if you get a loan at 7.75 with SBA, any money you put down, you're saving that 7.75%. When I did mine, there was no SBA loans for self-storage, and I went with a traditional bank. And we put 30% down, but we had 8.5% interest rates. And it was tough because with a traditional bank, they don't loan you the carrying costs. Almost the only bank that does that is SBA lenders. So, if you're building an 80,000 square foot project, that carrying cost can be somewhere between $500,000 and a $1 million. So again, you're building a self-storage with a lot less of your own money. And that's why you see a lot of people doing their first one there. And then, when they refinance out of that, they could refinance and put $2, $3, $4 million in the pocket. And then they build the second one with a traditional bank or lender.
All right, so we're getting close to the 45-minute mark. We got one more question from Ryan. I know there's a lot of different variables like sizes, locations for storage authority, but the average gross and net profit across the franchises.
Well, it does vary a lot. And the reason it varies so much is it depends on, how long they've been opened. Let's talk about one of the early ones that was opened. Scott built his facility. He was making $100,000 a month. He was about 80% full when he sold it for a $7 million profit. And if you say he was making $100,000 a month, the expenses are around 30,000. So you can do the math right there. When you're, there's a point where I'm going to say, if you get a feasibility study, it's around 2 years before you break even. The first 2 years are, is you have to fill up in that first 2 years. Now that's from the feasibility guys. We try to do it much faster than that because, we're a high-end sales and marketing, but you'll see that most self-storage's feasibility reports say, 24 months, sometimes 30 months, and you might even get some around 40 months. You start getting breaking even after 40 months, it doesn't make sense. So we're looking to break even in 18 months or less. And on paper, it always looks like we can break even in a year, but we like to be a little bit more cautious with 18 months. But if you don't take home 200 grand, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not worth the risk. So the idea is to minimally take home you know, a $200,000 cash return on your development. But there is no average. You know, to get an average, you'd have to have 30 or 40 open self storages for 5 or 6 years. And we're heading for that, but we're not there yet. But you know, there's not a single one of our facilities that we built has failed. There's not a single one of our owners that did not make a ton of money. Um, you know, it's just that definition of what a ton is. 7 million when you sell it, or a couple 100,000 plus when you fill it up. The one thing you have to remember about self-storage and what really makes it great, and you know why inflation, if you own self-storage, inflation is your friend, because most of your costs in self-storages are fixed. The land is fixed, the concrete is fixed, the building is fixed, the payment is fixed. So inflation goes up, it doesn't affect us like it affects a restaurant where their cost is mostly 30 employees and tens of thousands of dollars of food every month. So as inflation comes, their profits go way down. When inflation comes to us after we've built, our profits literally go up because we raise our rents 2 or 3% above inflation. We get the 2 or 3% above, but we also get half of the rates that we raised it because of insurance. So, you know, that's why self-storage is so profitable, is that it doesn't have those high-end inflationary expenses. So as time goes on, you know, my facilities are one of my facilities is a half million. It's 55,000 net rentable square feet, 10,000 smaller than what we build today. And, you know, you're making over $500,000 in profit, even in a small community, without a lot of profit, because time has passed. And you know, your mortgage stays the same, everything stays the same. But so there's a lot to it. It's that discussion is a good 1 hour discussion. Maybe we'll do a discussion just on that sometime at one of our meetings, because it could take all day to really go into the finer points of profit and loss. But there's so many great things, you know, just from depreciating that building. You know, the first couple of years, you're not going to be paying any income tax. So you got to look at a lot of different factors when it comes to profit and loss. But as we've all heard, it's been the number one real estate business for the past 30 years. And I think they lost out once or twice, and that was to these humongous Amazon warehouse construction, you know, which most of us don't have 50 or 60 or $70 million to build. So, you know, in my book, it's definitely the best asset class out there in real estate.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely could be an hour topic, maybe next time, Mark, but appreciate you sharing. You know, we did blow past our 45-minute mark. So, you know, I want to thank everybody who joined, listened in, asked questions. Remember, we're going to be doing this on the first Thursday of every month. So the next one's going to be September 5th at 1 p.m. You know, it'll be the same link. Shoot me an email. I can send you an invitation as well. But, you know, it's all about getting 1% better. So appreciate everybody who joined, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and if anybody's got any ideas they'd like us to concentrate on, send them to Garrett, you know, and he'll make sure we cover them.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for joining. But yeah, any ideas, fire away the emails and we'll put them on the topic, you know, next meeting.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.